Spaceships and space battles are absolutely awesome. Who doesn't love them? And of course, both are a huge part of Elite Dangerous. However, there's a question that often doesn't get asked. What happens to spaceships once they're dead? Well, there's a number of different concepts that come to mind. The first is salvaging, something that was discussed very early on with Elite Dangerous. Another is the ships simply get abandoned. A third possibility is that the ship gets interned in a graveyard, and it's this third possibility which is very much a reality within the world of Elite, at least according to the game's lore. The most famous of these graveyards is the Tionisla Graveyard. Welcome to a brand new series of videos then. It's a series which celebrates everything to do with Elite. Now, this series will have two sides to it. One side is called Best Locations. This will begin with Jacques Station, a video coming up very soon. And the other side of the series is called Missing in Action. We're beginning with that today, and it includes famous locations and ships that never quite made it into the game. So, what exactly is the Tionisla Graveyard, and what makes it so famous? Well, it was first mentioned all the way back in 1984 in the original Elite and its companion novel, The Dark Wheel. It also features in the more recent novel by Drew Wager, Elite Premonition. In just a moment, I'm going to read a quote from The Dark Wheel, which beautifully illustrates what Tionisla is all about. A very nice description there, actually. But before we get to that, let's talk about it being missing in action. The Tionisla Graveyard unfortunately never made it into Elite Dangerous. It was, however, frequently requested by the community. And the developers Frontier did say themselves at LaveCon 2016, yes, 6 years ago, that Tionisla would make it into the game at some point after patch 2.2. Patch 2.2 arrived in October of 2016. It was called the Guardians and introduced an ancient lost race known as the Guardians, along with the ruins of their ancient civilization. Patch 2.3 came in April 2017 and patch 2.4 came in September of the same year. There's been numerous other updates since then, of course, many people will be well aware of those. Unfortunately, Tionisla Graveyard never once made an appearance. Whilst we'll almost certainly never know why that is, it's quite certain that Frontier did at some point create the graveyard, or at least set out to do so. In fact, in a recent interview with a senior game designer, Frontier confirmed that some assets were created very early on and then held back for later implementation. This was true of the Scorpion SRV, so there's no reason to suspect it wasn't also true of the Tionisla Graveyard. At any rate, time moves on, and here in 2022, it's possibly unlikely we'll ever quite see it. However, we still have the information from the novel The Dark Wheel, which, as I said, paints a beautiful picture of the graveyard. Let's read that quote. The best way to see the wreck place at Tionisla is to approach it from the sun. A reasonably safe thing to do, since Tionisla, being a democracy, has few pirates in its system. Tionisla itself is a bright yellow world, and the cemetery is always between the planet and its star. As you fly close, the whole strange graveyard seems to be expanding from the circle of the world behind. The first thing you see is a shimmering silver disc, a doubled spiral of tiny bright points. It slowly turns. It's a galaxy in miniature, with the same intense blur of light at its center. Because here is where the biggest tombs are to be found. Come closer, and soon you can see that the stars in this galaxy are markers, great lumps of metal, heavily inscribed with the words and symbols of 1,000 religions. The cemetery is a bizarre and moving sight. The markers are rarely less than 1,000 feet across. There are chrome ally crosses, titanium stars of David, deridium henges, and all the strange symbolic shapes of the worlds and the minds and the faiths that have come to die in this Star Traveler's special place. Tethered below this vast, rotating mausoleum is the dodecahedral shape of a Dodo-class space station, the home of the cemetery authorities. Here, you go through the security checks and get your visitor's visa, and as you stand in the queue, staring up through the translucent ceiling of the customs hall, you can see the battered, broken ships of many of the dead still attached to the silent tomb that contains the body. So there we have it, mysterious, eloquent, and very much emblematic of classic sci-fi locations. Of course, today in Elite Dangerous, the Tionisla star system does exist. You can see it right here on the screen. It's got a number of prominent worlds, but there's very little in the way of reference to the Tionisla Graveyard itself. There is one marker here, however. In early August 3302, an antique Cobra Mark III was interred at the Tionisla Orbital Graveyard. Shortly before the ship was laid to rest, a beacon aboard the vessel transmitted a repeating sequence of curious characteristics. The sequence was picked up by several relay posts in the Tionisla system, and it has now been determined that it contains content obscured with an unknown encryption. The encrypted data is followed by an apparently meaningless clear-text phrase. The vain queen rides a giraffe that remembers her daughter's hero. So, very, very strange. A marker here all on its own, and unfortunately no graveyard. In the next video in this series, we'll be taking a look at one of the best locations in the galaxy. This happens to be a Jacques Station in Colonia. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.